Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I'm your host, PattSun, and today we're going to be taking a look at r/infidelity, where the secret on truly moving on was, surprise, surprise, dropping the cheater. But before we begin, I just wanted to let you guys know that OP's original post was made over 3 years ago, but it was only a few days ago that he finally posted the final chapter of his story. And we will be covering his entire saga today. So you better sit back, relax, hold on to your Dragon Balls, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll begin. A few years later, what I have learned. Posted by Reddit user Random Throwaway.
I have known my wife for about 15 years now, dated for the middle 5 of those, and have been married for the last 5 years. She's my best friend, and I love her completely. My wife is a member of the National Guard and has been for several years. She has been away for quite some time to administer COVID tests in a large city, about an hour away from our home. She works either 4 or 5 days each week and comes home on her breaks. This last week, she had her normal 4 to 5 days of work, followed immediately by a full weekend of drill, and then right back to work. So she has been gone for about 2 full weeks now. She had 1 day off yesterday and works today, and has another day off tomorrow before resuming the normal grind. Granted, the longest we have been apart at the hands of the military has been almost 5 months. When she came home, I was naturally excited and tried to grate her with the normal hug and a kiss, and she was dismissive. She asked if we could go for a walk or something, so I got ready to go, and we picked up some coffee. She told me the whole story. A large group of fellow soldiers went bar hopping with her this past Monday. She told me everyone got home fine and went to bed. Shortly after, one of her fellow soldiers knocked on her door, and she let him in. At this point, they were both already drunk and started to watch Netflix, and the drinks kept flowing. At this point in the story, my heart sank. She wasn't making eye contact all morning, and she stared at the ground the entire time. When she told me what happened next, I couldn't believe it. I have heard countless stories about how gross some of these military guys can be, most of which comes from her first-hand experience of catcalling and inappropriate remarks. Everyone knew she was married, including this nameless piece of human shit. I'm at a crossroads. She has been my best friend for so long now, and we have everything together. A house, dogs, cars, basically everything except for children at this point. I'm torn because of the way I found out. She said it happened last Monday night, about 5 days ago now. She came to me and told me the news, unprompted. There was 100% no chance that I would ever find out this even happened. In a city far away, with someone she hardly knew, it's not right what she did. She has never done anything like this before. She came to me voluntarily, honestly told me what happened, and she answered any questions that I had, on the spot. What she did was unforgivable. I'll never forget, but she at least took the high road and came to me first. I had no idea. It was crushing. But, after spending most of last night awake, I can realize that if someone were to come forth on their own and bring this to light, she still wants this to work. I'm just not sure what to do next. She has had mental issues with sexual trauma when she was very young. When I asked her if this week was consensual sex, she said, "Not at first, but I'm tired of being the victim, so I let it happen." She went to, I still don't know many army terms, her supervisor, and they looked into it and determined it couldn't be classified as rape. I couldn't sleep last night because I felt so nauseous, so I started to write her a letter instead. I sent it to her today, and we talked for a bit. I had told her there are 3 mandatory things she must first do before anything else happens at all. First, no more drinking, which she agreed to, and gave away any alcohol she still had. My argument boiled down to, if that's what brought you there, why go back? Second, an STD test. She doesn't know this guy. I don't know this guy. It's not worth the risk, and it's easily performed. Lastly, the military has counseling and therapy services for service people, and they even have a specially designed course for spouses going through any type of issues, including infidelity. This whole thing doesn't seem real. She has been dealing with this since last Monday and hasn't had a meal since. I can feel the remorse and can tell she has lost weight. We both feel gross, and after 2 weeks of not seeing her, then this, followed by another week of her being away, I feel more alone than ever. At the end of the day, no matter what happens, I want the best for both of us. I have been feeling the full swing of emotions, shame, anger, guilt, sadness, anxiety, and frustration. I recognize there is an issue here, and what I want is to solve it. Whether we stay together or not, I care for her a lot, and no matter what, I just want us both to be happy, whatever that means. I'm trying to be objective, but it's the most emotionally charged issue I have been personally involved in. I'm looking for advice here, anonymously. I am too embarrassed to tell my friends or family, and at this point, only me, her, the guy, and both of their army supervisors know. Edit 1. I asked her what her definition of Netflix and chill meant. She didn't respond, but looked at the floor. It was someone who she trusted. I have learned that most people that take advantage of others in this situation are people that the person trusts. I'm on the fence about what to do, but don't you guys think that her telling me means something? I would never have known if she didn't tell me. It might have eaten her up inside, and it's well-deserved, but she could have just done absolutely nothing. Came home for a day and pretended nothing happened. I have seen so many posts on here saying, OMG, I caught my significant other texting some girl. But in this case, I had nothing to go off of. No suspicion. And she came to me? Don't you see this as at least an attempt to fix things? Edit 2. She knew this guy from the guard since October. It's now halfway through March, and this happened. It's not a complete stranger, but from my eyes, it's not me. It's hard to admit, but it's completely irrelevant how long you knew the affair partner for. It's still a cheat. Edit 3. Have none of you any sympathy? No compassion or empathy? Can none of you learn from your mistakes? I don't know what this means. Maybe everyone is right. I have definitely voiced my opinion on friends' opinions in the past to break up with someone else. Maybe it's my rose-colored glasses, but maybe I also believe this could still work. I know it's very easy to walk away. It may or may not be the right thing to do. What I'm saying is, how many of you have tried to make it work? How many of you have been hurt? Because I have. I'm looking for support, one way or the other. If you would have asked me 5 years ago when we got married if I would tolerate cheating, I would say fuck no. After so many years and so many good times, and with her being gone so much, especially during COVID, where I work at home and do all the household chores while she is away. It's all really raw and fresh. I appreciate all of the responses, but I still feel like by browsing this subreddit, it's mostly the mentality of screw the other person, mob now. Edit 4. Nobody knows the whole story. I don't either. There's still a line of what you want to know or not. Do you guys want me to ask her if she started to rub his crotch, then he got a boner, and then what? Did you suck it? Did you take his pants off or his shirt? What was your favorite part of his body? Who wants to know any of that? Whatever she left out was from me not wanting to ever know. Do you realize this is the lives of 2 actual humans? I know she did something wrong. It hasn't even been a day yet, and my mind is already scrambled. Edit 5. I'm just curious if anyone here has actually survived cheating, and as a result gotten to the main issue of why it has occurred. It's easy to walk away. I won't refute that. Has anyone here gone through the work and worked through the issues? Or is it all completely doom and gloom? Moreover, does it make it better or worse for them confessing? Edit 6. I'm completely exhausted. I am running on approximately 3 hours of sleep. I took our dogs for a walk. I spent an hour and a half on the phone with a military psychologist. I'm drained. I have nothing left. I haven't eaten all day. And at this point, I'm perfectly fine with going to bed at 5 p.m. Edit 7. One piece of advice I was given over the phone was to call a close friend for support and to try and not be alone. I reached out to my best friend and he came over right away, and I confided in him and he gave me advice. We talked for a good amount of time about it, and we spent the rest of the night playing video games together. He's a smart guy, and I valued his input. We spent all of today doing the same, and watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and didn't talk about her infidelity at all. Just before he was about to leave, my wife started messaging me and checking to see how I am doing. We are still texting back and forth as I am typing this. She is answering all of my questions. The more I read all of these comments here, after talking with my friend, and from the answers I have gotten from her, in addition to having just a bit more time to think things over, I'm more heavily considering divorce as a serious possibility. Edit 8. We spent the last few hours awake last night texting each other. I asked for more details on exactly what happened. I asked again what led up to these events that night. She said they were bar hopping. Everyone went back to their hotel rooms, but continued to talk in a group chat. She had mentioned a show she was watching, and this guy said he wanted to watch it too. She invited him in. I asked how this could possibly happen and what led up to the actual act. She said when he got there, both were still drunk. she offered him beer while she drank more too. They sat on opposite sides of the same couch and watched 3 episodes of the show. I mentioned this in a reply just a bit ago, but I'll copy and paste it here as well. She has always had a way of trying to prove that she is a tough person. Whenever we would have friends over for drinks, she would always get to a point where she would challenge everyone and anyone to some sort of physical strength challenge, arm wrestling, regular wrestling, etc., which she admitted was probably started the intimacy, and she admitted it was her idea to wrestle this guy. It's like she always had something to prove. She was never like that before the guard, and I can tell it has changed her personality quite a bit. So after about the 3rd episode, she challenged him to wrestling. She said after a while, he kissed her. One thing led to another. I asked why she didn't stop him, and she replied by saying she at first, maybe that's why they wrestled, but they were 2 separate things. I'm not sure what that means, and I don't know if she does either. No matter what, this reinstills that this was completely consensual. When she came home, she did have visible bruises on her face and back, as well as a fat lip and a slight black eye. So, I think this is most likely what happened, given her history of getting physical when intoxicated. This also confirms to me that this was completely not a grape case, and that possibility is out the window. I asked her what happened the next morning. When she woke up to her alarm, they were both still drunk, and he was still there. She threw his stuff at him and made him leave her hotel room. She had to go to work, and after that, they met up with their leader and said they both didn't remember much, but agreed it was consensual and decided not to talk about it anymore. This makes me feel like an official report has not been made, and that makes me nervous. I didn't ask her yesterday to confirm or deny this. It didn't even occur to me to ask her while we were on the subject. I am definitely going to ask her about this the next time we talk. She has a relative that lives in the same city she is stationed in right now and has spent as many nights possible sleeping at her apartment instead of returning to the hotel. She has talked about this with her aunt and has been receiving counseling through the military as well. I asked if any of this has seemed to help at all or not. She says it has helped. I asked if she wants to send herself to the shadow realm, and she said she does, but not at the current moment. A little bit of background information here. This isn't the first time she has felt sending herself to the shadow realm, and before we even started dating 10 years ago, told me she had previously been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. This past summer, she had to leave for about 2 months, which also included her birthday. While she was gone, I wanted to surprise her with a new renovation to our home that we both wanted for some time. I worked on it every day after work and enlisted the help of all 4 of our parents on weekends. She surprised me by coming back about a week early. The construction spanned nearly the entire first floor, including the dining room, living room, and from entrance. Tools are everywhere, and the place is a work in progress. It stressed her out. It was taking longer to complete it, and even with all of the help, hers included, it began to take a toll. We talked it through and put even more time into completing it so we could both be comfortable again. This was the first time she had brought her thoughts of sending herself to the shadow realm to me. We worked through it together, and all seemed well. The timeline would line up because that was over this past summer, and the first time she met this guy was this past October, so there isn't an overlap. It doesn't mean she didn't do something with someone else earlier. I'm just saying at that time, if she is being honest, it's not the same guy. I have seen a lot of people saying this is a clear indication that something like this most likely has happened before. She denies it and has been adamant about this being the first and only time. I feel like I believe her, but whether I do or not, it still happened at least once, and I'm not sure if that even really makes it better or worse. Naturally, the next question I had was asking if she has any feelings for this guy. Her exact words were, "I didn't think so. I don't think so." I asked her to explain further, and she replied, "How could anyone do that with someone you didn't have feelings for?" Then I asked her if she still has feelings for me, and if not, when did they change or fade? Her response was, "That's one of the things I am working on." Honestly, this paragraph was the thing that hurt me the most. The reason she said these things, in her words, were that if you truly love somebody and you do this to them, do you really love that person? Or do you love this new person instead? What does that say about what your true feelings are? In a way, I think I understand the sentiment and the rationale behind it. Later in our conversation last night, She said she was pretty positive she doesn't have feelings for him, but that's why she doesn't know why she did what she did. I am taking time off of work, and my boss has been very supportive. I plan on spending my day today, taking my dog for another walk. Then I'm going to go to the bookstore and pick up a few book recommendations I have received through private messages and chats from this subreddit. I really appreciate everyone here for taking the time and letting me vent. The anonymous third-party support is something I think I really need right now. In addition to the support from my friends and family that know us on a personal level, I want to thank all of you for the support, kind messages, and brutal honesty. Now for OP's first update. Well, this has officially been the longest and hardest week of my life. After my wife came home to talk for the second time after the affair, and the first time we both had time to think about it on our own. I have spoken to close friends and family, a handful of counselors over the phone, and a large portion of you guys on this subreddit. I have had a lot to think about, and so has she. Her job keeping her away from home turned out to be a good thing for us both. She arrived yesterday morning and we talked things through. A few people recommended that I record the conversation. Most people were concerned that she would try and pull something to trigger allegations against me. Others said to do it so I could use it as evidence against her and report her to her higher-ups in the military. Having an affair is a terrible decision on her part, and I may not know her as much as I would have liked to believe, but I knew she wouldn't do something like that. I did it anyways, just in case. But more importantly, I did it for myself so I could revisit her answers if I needed to, which is exactly what I did this morning. In my original post, it started with what she had told me. I asked as many questions as I could have mustered in that time of shock and weakness. I felt like I didn't have all of the facts, and the more questions I asked her via text message, one question would be answered, but another would pop up in its place. I had a list of talking points and questions written down in my phone so I wouldn't forget to ask them. It was beneficial to wait to talk things out in person. We decided to both say what we had to say one at a time and agreed that I should go first. The first thing I wanted her to do was to recall the story again from start to finish, both so I could compare it to what she has already told me, and she would have a chance to tell me anything she might have left out. Her story didn't change much, if at all. For those of you who didn't read my first post, or for those that have read it, I'll summarize it in its entirety and as according to the real-time line, after all was said and done, no more speculation. Recap. My wife is a pretty small woman, and we both acknowledge she has a bit of a Napoleon complex. Additionally, it's apparently pretty common in the army for people to wrestle each other when they get drunk. Horseplay kind of a thing. She is stationed about an hour and a half away from where we live, so they put her up in a hotel. On a Monday night, she and a group of other soldiers went out bar hopping together. Once everyone was drunk and the night was over, everyone went back to their hotel rooms for the night. However, they continued to talk in a group chat. My wife happened to mention that she was watching a certain show. Sometime later, one of the guys in the chat knocked on her door with beer in hand. She had been still drinking the beer she already had in the room as well. She let him in, and they both continued to drink and watch the show together. After about 2 or 3 episodes, one of them, we both assume it was her, wanted to wrestle. At some point, he kissed her and she didn't shut it down. One thing led to another. She said somewhere along the way, he asked her if she was okay, and she said yes. After the deed was done, they passed out. The next morning, Tuesday, she woke up and kicked him out. She went to one of her higher-ups and talked about it. They both agreed that because it was consensual, that they would completely forget about it like nothing ever happened. She came home that Friday after her work week was over and told me about it. Here are some of the questions I asked her and her responses. I'm paraphrasing here and remembering things as best as I can. Q. I'm not convinced that alcohol was the only motivation. It's just the gasoline to the fire. Without the fire, the gasoline does nothing. A. You are probably right. She and I both agreed this was likely the case, and it will be apparent later on. Can you see what it looks like from his perspective? He shows up at your hotel room alone, with beer. You both keep drinking. You start to wrestle. He kisses you. You don't stop him. She said maybe she was being naive. This was someone she has known for a while, but not very well. She had respect for him and thought he could be trusted. Do you have romantic feelings for him? No. Do you regret our marriage? No. Are you ever going to reconsider making an official report to the military? No. Her reasoning here mostly boiled down to two main reasons. First, it would endanger her position within the military. She could be disciplined in any number of ways: cut wages, losing rank, dishonorable discharge, etc. Her second reason was that if word did get out and she was to remain in the military, it would essentially paint a giant target on her back as being the easy girl. Even if she completely regretted this and never went out drinking again, you can bet anything that 80% of the other guys would be knocking on her door every night for a chance. Even if I made a report, she said she would adamantly deny anything. Why did you even decide to tell me? You could have kept the whole thing a secret, and I would have never known. Because I wanted you to know. The military strongly urged me not to tell my husband a thing because it would only complicate things. On top of that, the guilt would eat her up on the inside. Q. At one point months before this, she said she felt trapped because she is gone all of the time and relies on me to take care of the house, pets, finances, etc. Do you still feel trapped? A. That might be a part of it, yes. Afterwards, she told me what was on her mind and asked me a few questions as well. We both have issues with communication and have talked about it in the past. She mentioned that it felt hard for her to come to me when she was stressed, if I was also stressed, because someone had to be the strong one. It really turned into a vicious cycle. I was stressed, taking care of everything at home and from missing her while she is gone. She is stressed at work, and because I am under stress, nothing gets resolved, and the stress builds for the both of us. We have had a few issues like this in the past, and neither of us like conflict, so it took a few tries, but eventually we sat down and had a heart-to-heart. I thought we were past it, but it still bothered her a great deal. Because of all the stress and the physical separation, she felt there was never a good time to bring it back up. Even if she came back for a weekend between jobs, she would just have to leave again. And even though we would be on better terms, we would still not be together. The both of us knew that she loves dogs. I love dogs, but she loves dogs. I told her near the start of our relationship that my perfect number of dogs is 2. Dog fights make me extremely anxious. I have had stitches in my hand from trying to stop a fight, lesson learned. And when you add more to the pack, the dynamic changes and fights are inevitable. At the time, it was enough for her. Eventually, she wanted more. She fell in love with Alaskan Malamutes and purchased a few different sleds to realize a new dream of having her own sled team. We wanted different things. It happened 3 times. At one point, we had a maximum of 5 dogs living in our house, and we needed to keep them separate into 2 different groups and could not let them mix because of behavior issues. I didn't want to live in a house where I have to be super careful to make sure all of the doors are shut at the risk of taking an emergency trip to the vet. She didn't want to live in a house with an incomplete sled team. At the end of the day, I loved each and every one of them, and I don't regret having them. Maybe she was the push I needed to discover if I really didn't want more than just 2 dogs. Anyways, people say you're not supposed to have favorites, but we both did. Earlier this year, we had to rehome her favorite because she wouldn't stop initiating fights. A few months later, my favorite died at just 3 years old, suddenly over the course of a few days. Both were really rough on both of us. We were even going to get matching memorial tattoos for the one that passed away. At the end of the conversation, we both came to the agreement that a divorce was the only real option here. After talking it through, we had concluded that this affair was completely consensual and was her way of crying for help to get out of a relationship she was not happy with. She didn't know how to end it herself, and when the opportunity presented itself, she took her one-way ticket out of the relationship. However, we agreed that the way she handled it was neither the right nor the appropriate thing to do. The relationship should have ended when the thought first entered her mind due to the lack of communication, whether either of us realized it at the time or not. The affair doesn't fix anything, but it did put things into an extreme perspective for the both of us. She made it very clear that she was the villain in this situation, and she handled things poorly. Another point that was very important, and I mentioned in my original post, was that we started dating as soon as we were both out of high school, over 10 years ago. I had dated another girl before her for just under a month, but wasn't feeling it, so I broke it off. Other than that 1 month, she is the only person I have ever been with, including intimately. The time frame from finishing high school to 10 years later are huge years of your life. It's a time to discover who you are as a person, to go out and discover things that you like or things that you don't like. Instead of jumping into our own lives, we jumped into each other's. That being said, neither of us regret meeting, being friends, dating, getting married, or the marriage itself. We both loved each other greatly and cared deeply. I remembered hearing somewhere, the key to finding the right person you want to marry is to find someone who is your best friend that you also want to have sex with. That description really did apply to us. We just never got the time to learn to really love ourselves first and get to know who we really are and what's important to us individually. This past year has been really tough on the both of us. COVID-19 is affecting everyone and has been this whole time. We started the pandemic by both being unemployed temporarily. We lost 2 of our dogs within months of each other. She has been away from home 80% of the time. I have been home alone, stuck in the house under quarantine. If the past 12 months were a cake, it would be made completely out of shit. Infidelity is just the cherry on top. There is no way I would be able to look past the infidelity, and there is no way she would be happy not feeling free to chase her dreams without the fear of resenting her. She always felt like she was dragging me along with whatever she wanted to do, and resentment was inevitable if it continued much longer. We both felt like she was making large life decisions that I wasn't sure if I wanted or not. That's not sustainable for either of us. So the plan now is that she has already rehomed the latest dog we were fostering and has plans for a friend to come move her 200-plus gallon fish tank out of our dining room. She said I can have everything, the house, the cars, the other 2 dogs. I don't need 2 cars, so I said she can have one. As far as the dogs, I'm undecided on what to do with the remaining 2. She's making decent money now that she is active duty and has the chance to save up for an apartment of her own whenever her deployment ends. Because of the size of our dogs, 80 pounds is the lightest, it will be extremely difficult to have her take the remaining 2 dogs with her, or even just 1. They can stay at the house with me indefinitely. At this point, I have been home alone with them for so long that nothing much will change. I'm not sure if I want to keep them or not because of 2 reasons. First, it's more responsibility for me. One of her civilian jobs was a dog groomer, so she took care of that side of things. Baths, nail clippings, brushing their teeth, etc. We even have a full dog washing station in our basement. I know this sounds trivial, but imagine you were divorced by a professional chef. Wouldn't you think about them every time you made a meal yourself? The second reason I'm not sure if I would want to keep them is because it might still remind me of the 2 of us. I love these dogs to bits, but I feel like I would all too often find myself saying, "our dogs," instead of "my dogs," if you catch my drift. Arrangements have been made for both of our remaining dogs in the case that I don't want to keep either or both. There is no time crunch or rush to make a decision on my part. This is weighing heavily on my mind at the moment, and in my opinion, is the most important thing to think about. We have at least 3 potential homes for both dogs lined up already, who are all eager to adopt them at the drop of a hat. As far as reporting her to her higher command, I have no plans of doing so. It feels like our marriage has run its course and we are both hurt greatly. I wish her no additional harm. I don't want to ruin her life. She may have ruined our lives together, but she might have saved them individually. Not only that, but there are really only 3 possible outcomes if I made a complaint. Keep in mind, I'm the only person with a motive to call it in, so no matter which outcome, she would always know it was me. Nothing happens, they don't investigate, and the situation is the same. She gets a slap on the wrist and everything becomes public. However, now everyone views her as a human target for easy sex. I don't want to put her at any more risk. I'm serious though, really think about this one. Would you be able to sleep at night if you knew you were putting anyone at a higher risk for being sexually assaulted? For any reason? She gets kicked out of the military with a dishonorable discharge and has to couch surf indefinitely while having a permanent black mark on her record, almost to the equivalency of a felony. Most of the people here were very helpful. I have had long response chains with some of you, and a few others even reached out over chat and have spent nearly entire days talking things through. For that, I truly am grateful. While most of you were saying something to the effect of, "She has been cheating on you this whole deployment. Check her phone records. She's a piece of trash. Throw her away." I get it, I really do. Most people here are talking through their own life experiences. Every relationship is different, and that's an understatement. As an umbrella statement, those thoughts and mentalities are true. However, from my perspective, this is a case of both of us don't know how to communicate to such a degree that one makes a split-second decision that ultimately causes a great deal of harm, consciously or otherwise. Do I think my wife is a great person? Yes. Do I think she made a mistake? Yes. Do I think things could have ended things better without unnecessary trauma? Yes. Is my life turned upside down? Yes. If I ruined the rest of her life, would I feel even worse? Yes. Did we try our best to save the marriage? Yes. Was it enough? No. Overall, I feel better. It's almost bittersweet. I'm sad and upset that the marriage is over, but I truly want what's best for the both of us. I wasn't necessarily unhappy, but maybe I was lying to myself? I really don't know at this point. We both agreed that this was the appropriate time to break things off. I have heard the best thing to do is to focus on me, getting to know myself, and following any interest I have, which I plan on doing. It's going to be tough to get out there again because of my real lack of dating experience and with the pandemic on top of it. Even though I have been living alone for so much of our relationship, now I am actually alone and I feel terrified. Hopeful, but terrified. Thanks to everyone for taking all the time to respond and give advice and for giving me heaps of support. You guys truly are wonderful people. Edit. I'm putting this edit at the top because there are a lot of comments touching on the following subject. At this point, I realize I'm coming across as defending her. Something I have already decided on is that the relationship is over. Whatever was going through her head, I don't know, and at this point doesn't matter. I have to focus on what's going on in my head now. The term, not my circus, not my monkey, really applies to how I feel at this point. What I am about to say matters to me, and it's one of the biggest takeaways here. Let's say she does this to someone else. She finds someone and does the exact same thing. If she chooses to ruin her life again, in addition to another guy's, that's her cross to bear. I don't plan on reporting her to her chain of command. It also doesn't matter to me one bit if this had even been going on for our entire marriage. I don't care if they spent last night together. I don't care if they plan on running away together and getting married. I don't care if she finds someone else. The point is, it happened at least once, and that's all it takes for my trust to disappear completely. Does any of the variables matter to me anymore? Length of affair, number of times, her future plans? No, they do not. If she doesn't learn anything from this, that's not my problem. I'm moving on. Now for OP's second update. If you haven't read my previous posts, I don't blame you. They were pretty long, and I was mostly just ranting. Read at your own risk. For a brief recap, my ex-wife is in the military, and she had a Netflix and chill night in her hotel room with a fellow soldier. I found out in mid-March and filed for divorce shortly after. A lot of people recommended that I report her to her higher-ups. I secretly recorded our conversation and have her admitting to everything on tape. But after thinking about it, it's just more effort on my part. I just want to be done with this for good. I have nothing to gain by reporting her. Either she continues her actions and is eventually found out and punished, or she straightens up and learns from it. Either way, it's no longer any of my concern. It's almost ironic. Her parents have a terrible relationship, and mine have a really strong one. She always told me stories about how rampant cheating is in the military. Eventually, she became the very thing she despised the most. At this point, it's just something she is going to have to learn to live with now, and I have to learn to live with the betrayal and hurt. This whole process has been extremely draining and had a strong effect on my physical and emotional health. We separated everything 50-50, and I was adamant about separating absolutely everything. When I told her to remove me from her Amazon Prime account, she asked me about 5 times if I was really sure that's what I wanted. She paid for some things, and I paid for others. I changed all of my passwords and made sure she did the same. Thankfully, she has cooperated fully. Whenever there was a shared bill for the house, I told her the total, and she paid me for her half. We had 2 cars together. One of the cars was older, and I purchased and paid off fully before we were married. The other was a much newer car we purchased together and still had a loan on it under my name. I decided to keep my older car, and she could take over the loan for the new one. About a week after the divorce was finalized, she hit a deer on the highway and totaled the new car. She took care of all of the insurance claims and got the loan on my bank account taken care of. Over these past few months, I have gotten a lot of support and advice from friends and family, in addition to the community here. I have thanked everyone in my personal life for being there for me, and I want to thank you all as well. The last few months haven't been easy. That's an understatement. Lots of ups and downs. It's crazy to compare my life currently to just a few months ago. I no longer own a house, have any dogs, a wife, nor the person I thought was my best friend. On the other hand, just 3 days ago today, I got my check for selling the house, and later that same day got myself a more reliable vehicle, went from a 2007 model to a 2016. The very next day after that, I signed a lease for a very nice apartment in an attractive city within my state that will actually put me closer to my hometown as well as my work. It's been a very strange part of my life. I honestly do miss her. We had a lot in common, and we had a lot of history together. She really was my best friend, at least at the time. There are a lot of things that remind me of her. I think about her less and less each day, but in a way, it almost makes it worse when I do think about her unintentionally. There is still that natural reaction when I find a funny video or a new single comes out from an artist we both like. I have the knee-jerk reaction to send it to her before remembering that's not what I should be doing. Now the only thing left is to get the last round of expenses, bills, fees so I can pay them and she can give me her half, which she has been reimbursing me on so far, which will take up to 2 more weeks for the electricity bill alone. Once that is all done, I'm going to block her number. I have already removed her from my life completely, but have needed some form of contact with her for logistic purposes. After the last bill comes in, I am cutting her out of my life completely by blocking her phone number. I deserve better. The house is sold. The dogs have been rehomed. We both have new apartments. We both have new cars. We both have new lives. I'm anxious and nervous about the future, but I look forward to moving to a new city and starting on rebuilding my life. I'm excited for a change of scenery and to meet new people, and more importantly, eventually finding a new partner that will give me mutual love and respect. And now for OP's final update. First off, I want to once again thank this subreddit for being so supportive. The friends and family in my life are amazing, and I couldn't have gotten through this without them. But this community has given me some amazing real steps to follow, and in tandem with communities in real life was the winning combination, personally speaking. Thank you all. Seriously, thank you. I'll do a quick TDLR for anyone unfamiliar. I was a scattered mess and vented a ton, so here's the summary. We met really young, and as a result, was the only real relationship I'd ever had, and were together for just under 10 years, roughly half of which was spent married. Halfway through the marriage itself, she wanted to join the military. Once COVID hit, she got stationed in the largest city in our state for handing out tests for about 1 week. When she came back, she confessed to having an affair with a fellow soldier. I divorced her within the week. At the time, I was 23 when we were married and 28 when we divorced, and she was a year older. Now for the main course. A lot has changed in my life, in almost every capacity, for the better. My overall physical and mental health have been at an all-time high. One of the changes I've made is regularly going for walks, which has really helped me focus on my thoughts more clearly. During my walk yesterday, my train of thought led me back to this subreddit. I used to let her infidelity affect my thoughts daily, which now feels like an entire lifetime away. That being said, it felt like the right time to revisit here and pass on some encouraging words to others. Things get better. Life gets better. You will get better. Going through this process has taught me a lot. Not only about the process itself, but it taught me a lot about myself along the way. The time between finalizing the divorce and deciding to get back into the dating scene for me was about a year. It didn't take too long to find someone new. We hit it off, dated for about 2 years, and have been single now for almost a year after that ended. Looking back on that relationship, it should have lasted about half that time. There's a pattern I'm beginning to recognize. I tend to try and make a relationship work at any cost, even at my own expense or personal happiness. I'm no longer angry at my ex-wife for cheating. I do not understand it. I do not condone it, but I can accept it, learn from it, and most importantly, move on from it. One of the best recommendations often made on this subreddit is to read Leave a Cheater, Gain a Life, The Chump Lady's Survival Guide by Tracy Schorn. So much ground is covered in this book in a relatable tone, as if it were coming straight from your best friend's mouth. Super easy read, puts a lot into perspective, and was immensely helpful tool to make me feel more sane, grounded, and not alone. When I started reading it, one of my intentions was to highlight parts that resonated with me and then mail the book to my ex so she knows exactly how she made me feel. It didn't take very far into reading, however, to stop doing that, because basically an entire page would be highlighted, and I quickly stopped caring about her feelings at all. Having to survive infidelity is unfortunate, but fortunately the path to recovery has been well documented and most likely won't change. There are resources out there for you. Reach out to friends and family, get more involved in your community, take care of yourself, exercise, socialize, stay as positive as possible. All of this is easier said than done. I get that. In a lot of ways, it's similar to losing weight. Both have no-brainier solutions that we all already know how to fix. Eat less and move more is to losing weight, as staying positive and move on is to surviving infidelity. It's hard work, yes, but in a lot of ways, you already know what has to be done. It's all about having the motivation to want something better for yourself. For me, this was the hardest part, but once this changed for me, the rest fell into place. If you're reading this, I'm sorry you're here, but you're in good hands. This is just the beginning of getting better. For lack of better words, I'm glad you're here. Things will get better. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but eventually. Don't ever let someone's lack of love for you overshadow the real love that so many others already have for you.
OP, although I completely disagree with your decision to not report her to the chain of command, it is still great to be able to say that you have truly survived infidelity. Thank you for sharing your story, man. Concentrate on your health, your wealth, and your wisdom. You got this. Viewer support is the best way for me to remain independent and continue bringing you these daily videos, which will always be here on my channels for you to watch absolutely free. So please consider subscribing to me on Rumble and on YouTube. Both will be linked in the description box down below. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you even somewhat enjoyed today's story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you really like it, consider subscribing to PattSun to never miss a future upload. Stay strong.